Let's shift focus to the United States, ladies and gentlemen. In a major setback, former United States President Donald Trump has been indicted over the classified documents case. Two of Donald Trump's lawyers have quit one day after the former president was indicted. He has been indicted on federal charges for storing dozens of classified documents at his Florida home. He faces 7 counts, including willful retention of information related to national defense, at least 1 false statement charge, and at least 1 charge related to obstruction of justice. The former president has denied all the charges against him and said he is innocent. Trump has been ordered to appear at a federal courthouse in Miami next week. This is the second time in recent months that Trump has been criminally charged, ladies and gentlemen. The federal charges represent the biggest legal jeopardy for Trump, coming less than 3 months after he was charged in New York with 34 felony counts of falsifying business records.
Former US President Donald Trump was told to show up at a federal court next Tuesday in Miami as he faces a second indictment, this time over his handling of classified materials after he left the White House. And this marks the first time in American history a former president has been indicted on federal charges, adding to his legal troubles as he runs for president again. The indictment remains under seal. Sources say Trump faces at least 7 criminal counts in the federal case. However, Trump lawyer Jim Trusty told CNN charges include conspiracy and obstruction of justice, among others, and that he expects to see the charging document by Tuesday when Trump goes to court. Trump, who leads the GOP in the polls, targeted the Biden administration in a video posted on Thursday on his social media platform.
I'm an innocent man, I'm an innocent person. Our country is going to hell, and they come after Donald Trump, weaponizing the Justice Department, weaponizing the FBI.
Around 100 documents bearing classified markings were recovered from Trump's Palm Beach home last August. The Justice Department was looking into whether Trump unlawfully removed them when he left office in 2021 and whether he or others tried to block the government's investigation. On Thursday, reporters challenged Joe Biden about the Justice Department's independence in relation to the case.
I have never once, not one single time, suggested to the Justice Department what they should do or not do, or else to bring a charge or not bring a charge. I'm honest.
Following news of the indictment, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, other Republicans such as Ron DeSantis, and billionaire Elon Musk tweeted messages to support Trump. Hofstra University constitutional law professor James Sample says it's likely federal prosecutors will bring charges that are serious and easy to prove. But he also said that doesn't mean Trump's poll numbers will suffer.
And in fact, it was striking to witness that when he was indicted in New York on the charges arising out of the Stormy Daniels affair and the classification of those expenditures, his poll numbers actually improved. Now, is that causation or is it merely correlation? It's very, very difficult to say. But one thing that we have learned over the last couple of years in particular is that the normal rules, the normal political assumptions that apply seemingly don't apply in the same way to Donald Trump.
Trump is the first former president in U.S. history to face criminal charges. That's after he pleaded not guilty to 34 counts of falsifying business records linked to hush money paid to porn star Stormy Daniels before the 2016 election. He also faces a much more serious criminal investigation by a county prosecutor in Georgia relating to his efforts to undo his 2020 election loss in that state.
And I'm joined by Sanjay Suri on the broadcast. Sanjay, when it comes to these fresh legal troubles for Donald Trump, could he be headed to jail anytime soon?
Well, certainly not anytime soon, but could he be headed? Certainly this is possible. This is a very different order of prosecution that we are seeing than the earlier case. For a start, this is a federal charge now in a federal court. The other was at the New York level, the New York state level, and that involved a payment of hush money and opaque accounting practices over money paid to the porn star, the colorful Stormy Daniels. This is a very much more serious, at least potentially. We are talking about removal of classified documents from the White House when he left office. We're talking about as many as 13,000 records, including 100 very critical ones, marked that they're most critical as categories goes. And this, all this pile included information about North Korea's missile program and other very sensitive matters. And this is not a matter of oversight that he just happened to have them sitting at home to do his homework, so to speak, but he carried them. He said that he has taken military documents home. This clearly is an admission that he has done something he should not have done. At other times, he has contradicted himself, not unusually. He has said that he had declassified them before taking them, but the evidence on all that is not very clear. But if it turns out that there is a clear case of him knowingly transferring these documents, and we know that he knowingly resisted parting with them, then the case is potentially very serious and he could be looking at a jail term down the line.
Right. Thank you, Sanjay, for getting us the latest when it comes to the legal trouble for Donald Trump. I'm also joined by Amy Tarkanian, Republican strategist on the broadcast. Thank you, Ms. Tarkanian, for joining us on CNN News 18. My first question is that with all this legal trouble, is Donald Trump still Teflon Don for the Republican Party?
You know, it's interesting because I think if you are somebody who is still devoted to the MAGA base and to Donald Trump, then your decision has already been made up. You're still going to follow him lockstep. If you are somebody who is exhausted and tired of the chaos that swirls this man, then you have already also made your mind up. So I don't know how much this is actually going to move the needle, as crazy as that sounds. But I think that this is probably going to backfire on the Democrat-led DOJ and Attorney General, which also sounds insane because you think it would be enough to end his run for presidency, but that's just not going to be the case. It's going to further embolden his base. And the fact that we also know that Vice President Pence we found documents, sitting in his garage. That's questionable. Why is one person being treated differently from the next? And not just Vice President Pence, but we know that past presidents in our lifetime have also taken home documents to some extent. So I think from here on out, we probably need to change the rules and change the law. And you're no longer allowed to take any more than a pen and maybe a notepad with letterhead and maybe something from the gift shop.
Right. But if we talk about the Republican race, Ms. Tarkanian, you also have Ron DeSantis, you also have Mike Pence, who are in the race for the Republican ticket towards the White House elections. Given the fact we're all looking forward to seeing Donald Trump, Ron DeSantis, and Mike Pence share a debate stage, what do you think is the thinking in their camps, in DeSantis camp, in the Pence camp, when it comes to addressing this issue? Do you think this will be a point of attack for them, or they know that if they attack Donald Trump on his legal troubles, the MAGA base will just turn on them and they'll become persona non grata within the Republican Party?
Well, I don't think they're worried about having the MAGA base vote because it's not going to budge. So the people who have already stayed in lockstep with Donald Trump, they're going to remain there and they're not going to budge. They're digging their heels in. So they're having to try to reach out to those other voters who I mentioned earlier that are exhausted of the circus that swirls Donald Trump. They're going to have to reach out to those soft Republicans and also appease to those independents when it's time for the general and the soft Democrats. So this is two different types of campaigns, even though it's a primary that they're all in on it together. Now, if I were an advisor of former President Trump's, which I'm not, but if I were, I would actually tell him not to participate in the debate because he's so far ahead in the polls. And it doesn't matter which poll you choose. It can be a left-leaning poll, a center poll, a right-leaning poll. He's ahead by 30 plus points, which is almost a landslide. And so even though all of these legal troubles are swirling him, he's still in the lead. And so it would allow for the plan B or the second tier candidates, if that's what you'd like to call them, to sort of try to stand out to the rest of the voters who are looking for the option.
Right. And my final question is that when it comes to the road to the 2024 presidential elections, I feel the Republican Party is currently at a crossroads. Donald Trump has not been a winning candidate ever since he became president. At the same time, do you think the moderate Republicans can overpower the MAGA base when it comes to picking a candidate to face off against Joe Biden? And number two, does the Republican Party run the risk of losing Republican voters to Joe Biden and turn certain red states blue?
Okay, so I would like to think that the moderate Republicans could come up with a very strong option other than Donald Trump. I'm afraid, though, because he is so far ahead in the polls and because of now this new legal battle being thrown in our direction, that it's so painfully obvious that it's not being put out fairly across the board. As I mentioned, you had former when he was vice president, Joe Biden with documents found in his home. We now know that Vice President Pence also had documents in his home, and the list goes on and on and on. So why is this mistreatment taking place, and why is it taking place now? And that's the problem that I think even Republicans such as myself, who do not want to have Donald Trump as the nominee, still have a tough time watching this unravel before our eyes and knowing that it's not being put fairly out there amongst these individuals. And so we're looking at not just another indictment, but we're also looking at a 76-year-old man who very well may be sentenced to prison up to 75 years. And so that means he would die in prison. I don't think anybody would like to see a former president die in prison. But if he is the nominee, then I do think, unfortunately, that does open the door for President Biden, which then in turn would pass the baton very quickly over to a President Kamala Harris.